Hello and welcome to my first ever YouTube video. My name is Abdul and this is my current road bike, the Ribble Endurance SL Disc. I've had this bike for a couple of years now. I've done over 3,000 kilometers on this bike now. I know that's not much for some keen cyclists out there. However, cycling is just one of my many sports that I like to take part in. I usually cycle during the spring and summer when I'm training for those charity rides and other things like the Ride London, which I'm taking part again this year. To tell you a bit about my bike, first of all, I'd like to say it's running a Shimano 105 group set with a 1134 cassette at the back, which kind of is a large cassette, but it helps me get up those steeper climbs when I need the extra gears. In terms of wheels, I am running prime carbon wheels, 55mm. They are partnered with a Pirelli P0 performance race tyre. Now these aren't the tubeless version, because when I was coming to source those, I couldn't find the tubeless version with a tan sidewall, so I had to settle for the inner tubes. These are 28mm, which are very comfortable in those long rides where you are going over gravel, for example. I have a Physique Antares R5 seat on this bike, and also in terms of the cockpit, the bar and stem are fully integrated carbon again. And when I was speccing, I wanted to make sure that all the cables fully internalized, and that's why I went for the carbon cockpit. So, after owning this bike for over 2 years, I've kind of come up with a list of 4 pros that I see in owning this bike, and I've been pretty happy over the time that I've owned the bike. So first of all, it's the actual look of the bike I think is a big pro. You know, fully internalized cables, the sleek look of both aero wheels and the carbon cockpit. I think everyone, safe to say this does look like a very sleek and aero bike. And I think that's one of the pros of owning this bike. It looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. The second pro of owning this bike is the relaxed geometry it provides. Now, when you do those longer rides over 30 miles and going up to like 80, 100 miles, you need something that's comfortable to ride. Not necessarily the fastest bike out there, but because there's relaxed geometry, you can eat up those kind of country lane miles and feel comfortable. I've never actually had any back pain riding this bike. Now, the third pro of owning this bike is the disc brakes. The last bike I owned had rim brakes, and in the rain, you'd really struggle going down the hill without the lack of modulation on the brakes that I really felt were kind of holding me back. Whereas this bike, I feel really comfortable on the brakes. The feel you get from pressing the brakes enables you to kind of be comfortable and ride at a pace, downhill or however you want to ride it. The fourth and final positive, I think, is the value for money I feel personally this bike has given me. Now, its current spec, this bike would have cost me £3,000. You can get it for a lot less from Ribble. It just depends on the spec you choose when you are, configuring your bike, both at their website or in their store. However, there are some downsides to owning this bike, namely the seat. I hate this seat. It's fine when you're riding for 30 or 40 kilometers or so. However, once you do these longer rides, and I noticed it last year on the Ride London 100 miles, that after 30 miles, I was struggling with this seat, and I don't think it's well suited to me. For others, it may be perfectly well suited. However, for me, I think I'll be changing this later this year, and hopefully through a bike for it, I'll be able to find a seat that better suits me on those longer rides. The second disadvantage of this bike is the weight and the feeling you have when you're going through those twisty street roads at kind of a high pace, because the bike weighs just over 10 kilos in its current spec, which is fairly heavy for a road bike. My previous bike, which is a Dolan E-Tap, that was about 8.5 kilos, and you can notice the difference. This isn't as nimble going down those roads, especially in the downhills. It is well planted, however, it's not as nimble. So bear that in mind if you do try and purchase this bike. My last point doesn't actually have to do with the pedals currently on this bike, but before I used to have the Shimano 105 pedals on this bike. However, I had to remove them because I couldn't lock in to the right pedal. No matter what I tried adjusting it, I couldn't just clip into that pedal. So I decided to go back to my old generic Shimano pedals that I used to have. These work fine. I can clip in every time, first time. That's the reason why I had to go back to these. So overall, this bike, after owning it for 2 years, I really enjoyed riding this, especially in the summer evenings after work, getting on my bike, going to Regent's Park or Epping Forest, and doing a few hours on riding. I really enjoy it for those kind of needs. In terms of value for money, this bike, £3,000 it cost me. I didn't initially pay that. I kind of slowly specced up the bike, such as the carbon wheels, the power meter, they all came after. Initially, I had another set of kind of aluminium wheels on this bike with different tires. However, I decided to change it up and slowly build into this bike. And I really like Ribble because it's a British brand and they enable you to configure the bike how you want it before you even buy it. So they have a selection of kind of wheels, seats, cockpits, bar and stem, pedals. You can choose all those things on their website, or even go into one of their stores or their flagship store up north. I think it's Preston is where they're based, or Lancashire. Somewhere along there, that's where they're based. And they have this kind of showroom where you can go visit the bikes and purchase what you want. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please share and subscribe, and we'll tune in next time. Thank you very much.